Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. I'm your host, Juliet Clark, and today we're going to talk about a platform building with one of our platform building clients. But before we get started, I want to remind you to go over to bamagtraining.com. Our trainer for the month of March is Anthony Jones, and he's a LinkedIn expert. So if you've been thinking about how to get more conversion on LinkedIn, how to spiff up your profile, this is the event for you. And if you go over to bamagtraining.com, you can get the link, you can sign up, you can get all the details over there. And I highly encourage you to sign up and do it. Get all the training you can, be that constant learner. Today's guest is Andy Nam, and Andy is a leading expert in reversing chronic health conditions and optimizing longevity. As a life coach specializing in functional nutrition and longevity, biohacking, he is a best-selling author and a dynamic international speaker. Andy is dedicated to helping others take control of their life, thrive as they age, and unlock the secrets to living longer while looking and feeling younger. His journey came after a life-altering accident, which he survived in his teens, that led to decades of chronic pain. And he took his health into his own hands through biohacking, functional nutrition, and cutting-edge stem cell activation. And he healed his body and unlocked the secrets to thriving as he aged. As the co-founder of the Chronically Healthy Lifestyle, along with his wife, Minna Wong, Andy has made it his life's mission to inspire others to reduce inflammation, repair their bodies, and live longer, healthier, and more fulfilling lives. I think you'll find this interview really interesting because we're going to go along the progression of how Andy started building his platform. And his book is not even ready yet. He's still in the process of writing it. So he's gathering people as he's going along. So stay tuned for Andy. Andy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Juliet. I'm honored to be part of your show.
Oh, well, thank you. You didn't have to say that. But so tell us, how did you get into this biohacking? Tell us what was your journey?
I think the journey started from my own journey. When I was in my teens, in my graduating year of high school, I got into this really bad car accident, um, which basically fractured my neck, bent my back, and caused a lot of internal injuries, dislocated a lot of joints. And, from 18 to the next 20 years, I've been on various types of pain medication, all seeing all these specialists and doctors and stuff like that. And over the years, things just wasn't improving, right? It was managing everything, but it was getting to the point that it was getting hard to get out of bed. It was getting hard to concentrate, lots of brain fog, lots of like gut dysfunction is like, if you talk about IBS, like I couldn't hold anything in. You eat something, and then the next thing you know, 10 minutes later, you're in the restroom. So it was very inconvenient to go out to eat. And if you know me and my wife, we're foodies. We love eating out. So that was a major inconvenience. But it got to the point where, I couldn't sit or stand for more than 10 minutes at a time. And that's when I sort of started asking my specialist, hey, I was 43 at the time. And I was saying, so what's it going to look like in the next 10, 15, 20 years? Because like, I married my high school sweetheart. We have this whole thing planned out. We're going to retire and travel the world. And here I am. I can't sit or stand for more than 10 minutes at a time. That's going to be a problem traveling around the world, right? And, the worst he says, like, it could only get worse. We can only manage your symptoms. It's not going to get better. And at that point, I said, that's it. I'm done. There's got to be other ways. I read all these miracle stories of people healing themselves or following other people that guided them on a journey for healing. And that's sort of when I went from loving fast life. I used to love fast cars. And then I dove everything into holistic health. And that was literally 11 years ago. And from there, I started studying supplementation and then dove into what causes inflammation, all the toxins in our environment, and all the toxic stuff that's coming in our minds and everything that's causing inflammation, which was causing all these problems. But mainly what I realized was all these drugs that were on, my health was being governed by big pharma as opposed to me controlling. They were controlling my health, right? They were able to give me enough to get by each day. but not enough to live life, if that makes sense.
Right. No, that totally makes sense. So this was a journey to thrive. And it's so funny because I know you and I have talked many times because you've taken a couple of my classes. I'm very holistic. I actually, my daughter is very, very pregnant, and a couple of weeks ago, I was trying to help her with her back, and it was yoga, and she's like, I could be dying, and you'd give me a yoga pose, but I think it's part of too that we grew up in a time where our parents didn't run up to the doctor. It was always, I had a high fever or take a hot bath. Everything was organic. And
Yes.
so I tend to go in that direction as well. So yeah. So you got into this, you started working with inflammation, you healed yourself, and then you started helping others along the same track.
Yeah, it got to the point I was like sharing free tips, and then my friends, one of my really good friends, well, gee, if you're giving this all free, why don't you do this as a business? Because I never looked at it as doing as a business.
Mhm.
Right. And that's okay. Well, we need business. You need credibility. So I got my, certified functional nutrition certification. I got certification as a personal trainer. And that was sort of dangerous because, a lot of people, and not dishing any personal trainers out there.
Mhm.
But basically I wanted to learn what they teach about nutrition. And well,
Nothing.
it's funny because you mentioned, back in the day, right? Like you're a few years older than me, but back in the day, like you said, everything was organic, right? So like, what personal trainers tell you to eat back in the day probably was sort of healthy. But
Yeah.
nowadays, what you eat, if they say, oh, you need to eat this protein or you need to eat this many, servings of vegetable, well, guess what? Now you're eating servings of chemicals. Right. So
Right.
even though you
Yeah.
think you're eating healthy, you're not, right? And I think that's where the biggest problem is. Like I have clients, I saying I'm going vegan and or carnivore. I think it's all great if it's clean, but vegan is the biggest problem because vegan, if you think about for vegetables, there are so much chemicals in that fertilizers, they're herbicides, and they're sprayed on them. And here you are, you're eating kale, which is obviously one of the most healthy things on the planet, and it is one of the most toxic things on the planet because it's so chemical laden.
Hmm. One of the funny things about that, my first degree is in horticulture, ornamental horticulture.
Mhm.
And even back when I was in school in the early 80s, I just aged myself, sorry. Um, the dilemma was how do we get people to buy pesticide, herbicide free food?
Mhm.
Because a lot of times it's not perfect, like what's in the store.
Yes. Mhm.
But so that's been a dilemma as far back as I can remember. But I think what's worse is I notice now, like my tomatoes last too long. They're
Yes.
putting something in it that is, I would imagine, inhibiting the ethanol, which is what is it ethanol? I don't know why that doesn't sound right, but basically there's gases as it decomposes it gives off, and I'm imagining that it stifles that. Which how good is that for your body that thing is in there to break that down, not break that down. So I think there's even stuff in our fruit, and
Yes.
I don't eat processed foods at all. So you're reliant on that fresh fruit, meat, all that's been
Exactly.
pesticide. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's getting very hard to determine what is good and what isn't. And I
Mhm.
love what you said, it's like back in the day, you're trying to encourage people to eat more of the organic stuff. And if you look at more of the farmer grown stuff, right? They're all different sizes, they're ugly, right? They're
Mhm.
not shiny. Well, there's a reason they're like that. That's what natural should look like. But
Right.
when you go to the supermarket and an apple is shiny like the apple from Snow White, you shouldn't be eating that, right? Because apples on a tree growing naturally should not be reflecting your reflection in the apple, right?
Very true.
Right? And you're talking about the coatings, and like I can understand on a grocery standpoint, they want more shelf life, right? Because of course it's all about money.
Mhm.
But like the latest coating, I don't know if you're familiar about, it's called Appeal, right?
Yes.
Yes. And what's scary is, of course, Appeal is normally sprayed on all on, non-organic, but now they actually have organic Appeal also. And so here you are buying organic fruits and vegetables, and they're spraying on it. And what it does is it keeps the outside looking like it's fresh, but it's literally rotting from the inside out. So you can't even tell when something goes bad,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I've had that happen a couple times where I've cut into something
Exactly.
and it's like, oh, this looked really good on the outside. I do this infused water every day, and
Hmm.
I notice it on oranges where the
Yes.
outside of the orange will look good, and then I'll cut in and there's one side that, doesn't look good. So,
Exactly. Or sometimes, like for citrus, what something that happened to me a minute not too long ago, we bought some lemons, organic from Whole Foods, and hopefully I don't get in trouble by saying Whole Foods. But anyways, it came from Whole Foods. We're thinking Whole Foods, right? And fully organic, and they look great. And Minna was slicing it, and it got so hard. Like the outside looked great, but it was so hard. The knife actually slipped, and she cut her finger. But inside was completely dried out. But on the outside, it looked like it was good, right? So
yeah.
these are things that you have to sort of worry is like, well, what's keeping it look fresh, and how safe is it? Because back in the day when we're growing up, when the apple starts rotting or whatever, you throw it away, right? Like, if it looks bad on the outside, it's obviously not good on the inside. But now we can't tell that anymore. And that's the biggest problem when I talk about we need to be aware of what we're actually putting in our bodies.
That is so true. There's also up at I think it's the University of Montana, somebody sent me a study on these new foods like the Bill Gates food,
Yes,
things like
exactly.
that. And they had done deep dive, what do you call it, scientific stuff on them and found that they're worse for you than processed foods
Oh, definitely.
because they're
Definitely.
basically you're putting artificial chemicals in your body, which cracks me up because he's always like, my impossible burger. Like
Exactly.
once you get used to the chemical taste, you'll love
Yeah.
it.
And it's so funny because it's like I cringe every time someone talks about the Impossible Burger, right? Because it's obviously fully vegan, good protein, but it's like I tell people, so if you cannot replicate this at home, it's not real, right? Like they make it look like when you're cooking it, like they claim it's beet juice coming out and that's how it bleeds and everything. Well, all you are eating chemicals, and a lot of these chemicals are like they are petroleum based. So it's
Yes.
like, are you drinking oil from your car or gasoline from your car? But that's essentially what you're eating when you're eating all these things that's labeled as health, vegan, humane free, inhumane free, all these things is like all these greenwashing is what's getting scary as to eating real food again, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. In fact, I just switched. I forget. I think I read Callie Means book, and I just switched from Pam to Ghee because,
Yes,
as I recall in the book, it says something about you're putting lighter, you're sprinkling your food with lighter fluid, basically. So I just
exactly.
switched. So you took all of this and you made it into a business, and then you have a very healthy show. Talk about that. Like, how did you get it started? What is it? Where can people find it?
Yes, so for the longest time, my wife and I, we used to call ourselves the Foolish Couple, and we still call ourselves the Foolish Couple. We used to have our website called Full Code Academy and everything. And a lot of people didn't understand what we did. Right?
I
Full
didn't when
Code's
I
supposed to
first
stand
started
short for
working
Foolish
with you.
Couple, right? And so we're saying, well, look, we need to get people to understand, what our message was. And we're just brainstorming some friends, with Christy. And she said, well, what do you really want to pass about? I said, well, we want to put a twist on it because everything that we look like, I think enjoying life is very important. You have to have joy in your life. And like you said, me and my wife, we're a little bit foolish. We always do something that everyone else is not doing. So we came up with a show called Chronically Healthy Life. And usually when people hear chronic, anything chronic is a bad thing. Right. But we said, well, we're going to put a spin on this. We're going to say chronically healthy. So this is like extremely healthy, like healthy beyond means. And that's where the whole idea of the show came about. And my struggle in these last 11 years is I find that I can help a lot of strangers. Like strangers will come up to me, Andy, tell me this, tell me that. But I cannot help close friends and family. They never listen to me, right? They just never listen to me.
Either.
Right. You know what I'm talking about. So that's really where the whole vision of chronically healthy life came into is look, we're gonna give some tips, but we're gonna interview people that's gonna give you how to live healthier. And sometimes a lot of times it may be the same thing that we've been saying for the last 11 years, But when it comes from a different specialist, people get that aha moment, right? So I'm really hoping that we can help a lot of people's families and friends get that aha moment coming, from someone else, right? Because like that's what we struggled with. And that's what we're hearing. A lot of people saying, wow, it's like I say this all the time, but when you say it, it's true. And I'm saying, well, exactly. And that's where the whole idea of chronically healthy life came into. And in our mind, when we're talking about chronically healthy life, a lot of people think it's just about eating and exercise, but there's so much more, right? Because like your business comes into it, your health, your finances, your mindset, right? Everything that you're exposed to, the people you're exposed to, the environment you're exposed to. So all our specialists, it's not just about food and exercise. We got people that's teaching what people call woo woo, which is actually being proven to help a lot now, right? You know
Yes,
what I'm
yeah.
saying? Right? Because that is in that holistic space. And a lot of people, they really need that because their minds they are in such a frenetic state. They don't know what to think anymore, right? All they have is all these negative thoughts. And when I said in the very beginning, I say, our bodies are so toxic. Well, that starts with our brain too, right? If your brains are toxic, your body becomes toxic. And even when you're having all these negative thoughts, you're literally driving inflammation in your body.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. So you took that show and we started working together, and you had already built a pretty, big show, a big audience, but you had this other show. This is where I love it, you guys, because listen to what he did. He's now generating revenue to cover the other show and building even bigger audiences. So tell us about Chronically Healthy Lifestyles every Friday, but then you took that other show and you allowed other people to sort of run it. So tell me about that.
Yes. So, this is a brainstorm. I have to give you credit, Juliet, because that was the brainstorm that you helped me with. Like, we've been struggling figuring out how we can have a bigger impact with people. But like our first show, we did it for 2 years, coming on to the third year. And, we know who our niche is, our followers and stuff like that. And then, of course, we interviewed so many specialists over the last 2 years that we found there, wow, there are other specialists here that we really connect to because I think it's really important the group of people you hang about with, right? Because you want to be around people that have similar mindset, similar values. So we came up with the idea of having 12 other specialists and we came up with what's called the Chronic Health Collective. So now we got 12 other specialists in their field and each week we're cycling through them as a specialist, teaching their specialty to help all our audience out there. And coming together, everyone is almost like, I don't want to say time sharing, but everyone shares a little bit. So, at least it's paying for the show monthly. And, we're putting together a monthly magazine and everything. But, our main thing is like, we're hoping to generate enough momentum where we can start doing virtual summits and then live summits all around the world.
That is amazing. So, some of the people you have, I know Samantha Kua, who is
Yes.
really fabulous with, if you can't drag your spouse or what other half to counseling, come into counseling yourself and work through, some of your problems, which I love because if you make yourself better, your marriage is either going to work or
Oh,
it's
for
not.
sure.
Like, it's
Exactly. And
definitely,
and
yeah.
we love Samantha to death. She was actually one of the first that we got for the show because she was like a little bit like us. She's quirky. I hope she doesn't mind us calling her quirky. And and she is out of the box because if you hear a lot of counselor relationships, counselors, they'll always say, oh, you need to be both there, you need to face, whatever your challenges are. And when we had an interview, no, we only need one of you. And like me and Min was like, only one of you, right? How's that work? Right? Like it, but what she's teaching is mind blowing, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, people need to understand this because it does start with one person, right? And of course you have to do the work, but like, from her, we started meeting some of our other friends and quite a few of our speakers, and they are very different. Like they are all
Yeah.
specialists in their space, but
Hmm.
they got their own little twist, a little quirkiness in it, and that's why we love them so much.
Yeah, so I was going to say Amanda is theta healing.
Yes,
Samantha's actually has a counseling degree, so she
exactly.
runs that way. So there's a lot of mental as well as physical in
Oh,
there
for
as
sure.
well. Yeah,
Yes.
it's funny. One of my clients just released a book that's about communication and interpretation. Dr. Greg Stewart, and it's funny yesterday because I'm super stressed out. Something happened and I had to approach him. And
Yeah.
then the minute I did, I was like, oh, I did that completely wrong. He's going to think I didn't read his book. But it's more, you know what? It's really more that habit, like that go, like, oh my God, I'm stressed. I have this go to when I'm
Yes,
stressed, and learning how to manage and change that, which is what I love about Samantha's stuff is if you change yourself, your whole relationship will change. And then
exactly.
better
Exactly.
decisions. So, what are the future plans? You guys, how often are you releasing that newsletter that you do around the shows?
So we are releasing our newsletter, which is a complete magazine, right? We're releasing that monthly. So each month we'll have a theme. And then of course we'll also have one of our coaches featured on the magazine too. So they go a little deeper dive, right? Because our main concept around the magazine is one, now everyone has something of value to share. And it's not all about you, right? Like not all about me, right? So now here they are when they're reading the magazine, they got 12 other people that they can connect and relate to. And I think that works for all of us, and total, including me and Minna. There's 13 of us, right? So we have 13 different points of view on one topic, and I'm sure one of them is going to resonate with you, family, friends, or whatever, right? So we're doing that monthly, and like I said, it's a full virtual magazine. I'm actually thinking about finding someone to print it, so we have some print copies, right? Just so it feels like a magazine, right?
Uh-huh.
But to me, I think it's very life changing to have something to look forward every month. It's sort of like I remember when we used to be kids, and everything's virtual now, right? You're reading magazines, and I used to subscribe to Roan Track or Men's Fitness or whatever, and you get a magazine every month, and you got that excitement of, oh, what am I gonna learn this month, right? And that's the type of excitement that I'm hoping to generate with our monthly magazine.
Yeah, the printing's hard. I've looked into that with our magazine. Now, here's something you can do though, is for a while, and I didn't feel like it was getting me the traction I wanted, but
Mhm.
people don't look for publishing as much as they look for health, is
Mhm.
I would take the magazine and have it converted to Kindle and put it up as like a 99 cent um,
Oh,
download. So that's definitely something you can do as well. Because I think a
I love
lot of
that.
people, especially right now, like do it. We're recording this in December. Do it before the beginning of the year because January is the big time. But I thought that was effective too. Yes, it added some cost to it because you have to have it converted, but it's free to put it up
Yeah.
if you're
I love
using
that
it.
idea. I'm gonna poach another of your ideas. It's like every
There
time
we,
I talk to you, Juliet,
there
you
we go.
like
There we go.
it's
So you
opening my
guys
mind. I love it.
So you guys are probably wondering, like, okay, so Andy doesn't have a book. Why are you having him on the show? I'm having him because he is taking the time to build the platform, and he's actually in the process of writing a book. We were laughing when we put this together. He's like the poor man Tony Robbins. Now, why is that? Because if you've ever read Tony Robbins' health book, it's amazing. But I know just the few things I picked out were so outrageously expensive.
Hmm.
There's no way that I could do those or, buy that many supplements on a regular basis. Or I think you and I talked about the joint, getting the stem cell joints. It's like
Yes.
$6 a joint. So,
Yes.
um, how are you coming on the book? Tell us about that.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because working with Christy, good friend of ours, I did self-publish a mini book.
Oh, good.
I have not promoted it yet. I just been so busy between speaking, traveling, and then having a family emergency last week. But it is on Amazon, and I'm planning to do a promotion on it. But one of the things that I do want to start looking into, and I am going to dig into your brain about this, and I'm sure a lot of your authors are probably going to be thinking about too, is I do want to dive into writing a fictional book, right? A
Ah,
series.
yes.
Only because a lot of things that I teach is quite controversial. And I don't want to be, let's just say I don't want to get targeted for saying the wrong things as a nonfiction book, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah. And nonfiction is really hard though. You and I mean, fiction. We were talking about that before we got on
yeah,
because we have a mutual friend who writes fiction. I started out as a fiction writer. It was
mhm,
much easier back then because the
correct.
market wasn't so saturated. So there
Mhm.
there is some stuff there to look at. But I just posted on LinkedIn, Chase Cunningham back in 2021, one of our authors wrote a book
Yeah.
about drones taking down an airplane. And you look around today, once again, I said this is being done in December of
Yeah.
2024, recorded. So I just posted about his book because wow, how much more relevant can you get than that?
Yeah. Yeah,
On the,
it's so true. And it's funny, and like you can't believe everything you read on the internet. But I think couple of weeks back, one airplane did come down, and we don't know if it was a bird that went into the motor. They claim it was one of the drones that went into the motor, and the airplane had to land. It didn't crash, but so that's funny that you say that because potentially it can be because
yeah.
you hit something wrong, you're gonna come down, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. So, Andy, where can we find your show for those who want to listen? It's on Friday night, but you also record it live and then people can go back in and watch as well, right?
Correct. So our show is live every Friday night on e360tv.com, right? So that is a virtual television network.
Mhm.
And but we also stream live on our Facebook channel, like basically on our Facebook. So we stream live at the same time on our Facebook, LinkedIn, and of course our YouTube. So YouTube's probably the easiest. It's like youtube.com/at Chronically Healthy Life, where you can see all the past episodes, or you can just watch it live right on YouTube every Friday too.
Fantastic. Andy, thank you so much for being on today and sharing this strategy that I can't believe how well you put it together. So, we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, Juliet.